Welcome to the Capital News. I am your host, Alex Karitis. Today is February 4th, 2020. Thank you so much for joining me. Title of today's podcast is The State of the Union, because this evening the President gave his third State of the Union address to a joint session of Congress. The speech was about an hour and a half long, obviously many applause lines in between. I'm sure the various news agencies counted how many applause, how long it took, etc., etc., etc. The speech was, it was okay. It wasn't his best. It wasn't his worst either. It did what it had to do. It played to his base. He pretty much stayed away from impeachment, which I do think was the wise and prudent thing to do. There's going to be some political jarring because he did not shake the hand of Nancy Pelosi. Some people are going to like that. They may view that as a power move. Some people may love it. And other people are probably going to dislike it, despise it, hate it, whatever. But that pretty much sums up the people's feelings for the president, for the Republican Party, for Nancy Pelosi, and for the Democratic Party. So obviously Donald Trump is not going to get up there and say that the State of the Union is weak or that it's divisive or any of that. It's the best ever. And this is not just Donald Trump. This is what all presidents pretty much do. They don't have to be, but most of them attempt to be cheerleaders, say that the State of the Union is strong, etc., etc. We think differently here at the Capital News. Are there some things that are good? Yes, there's always going to be something that is positive somewhere in this country. Always. There's a lot of good people in this country. There's a lot of smart people, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of innovation. There's always something good taking place in this country, thank God, in a number of areas. Healthcare, scientific, engineering, whatever the case may be. There's always something fresh and upcoming. And I always give this president a lot of credit because he is a good cheerleader for this country. He had some good lines, I believe, in the speech. I wish he delivered them a little bit better, but nevertheless, the point is still conveyed when he's saying that our best days are ahead of us. That's a good thing. It's optimism. I agree with that. But you're not going to get there by lying to the people. We're not going to get there by employing the types of policies that we are currently employing. Cheap, easy money is not a solution. It's not a solution at all. In fact, it's the cause of many of our problems. But we're okay with that. And of course, the stock market today, there was no way. And I should have made this point yesterday, and I was kicking myself when I was seeing how the stock market was performing today for not bringing this up yesterday. My mistake. There was no way that the stock market, at least in the United States, was going to have a sell-off today. Even a minor one, even flat, which wasn't going to happen. It's the State of the Union address, and the president has to tout the stock market. Has to. The Dow gained 1.4%. The S&P was up 1.5%. The NASDAQ was up over 2% today. The NASDAQ 100, 2.3% for the day. And of course, you have Tesla, which is just taking off to the moon, which now by market capitalization is second only to Toyota. Tesla only sells about 400,000 cars a year. Volkswagen, Toyota, they sell millions of cars a year. And somehow Tesla is second only to Toyota, which means it's larger than Ford, it's larger than GM, it's larger than Daimler, etc., etc., etc. Does this make any sense? No, of course not. But in the hyperbubble world in which we live, it kind of does. It kind of does. What's going to happen? I mean, is this thing just going to continue to shoot to the moon? Fundamentals be damned, it makes no difference. Just keep going, up, up, up. Or is there going to be a day of reckoning? It's going to hurt a lot of people. Because when things go up, everybody thinks they're a genius. And it's easy to think you're a genius when you have this type of system in place. When you're in the midst of the final innings of the business cycle, when you're in the final innings of a credit cycle, when you're in the final innings of many, many long-term cycles as well. You just think, well, I'm just going to buy something and it's going to go up. Well, that's exactly what takes place at the end of these cycles. So it took place during the dot-com bubble. It was only 20 years ago. The problem being, most people on Wall Street now, a lot of the traders, they weren't around in 1999. trading. They don't have the experience. They've never seen a bubble before. There's a lot of people on Wall Street who weren't even around trading and have it etched in their memory bank, the great financial crisis. They don't even have that. So this is why we continue to repeat the same old mistakes, because nobody wants to learn history, nobody wants to understand it, and nobody wants to learn from it so that it does not happen again. And in fact, what's taking place now is going to be even worse than the dot-com era and the housing crisis, because we have perpetually kicked the can down the road. We did not allow all of the malinvestment to cleanse itself during the great financial crisis. Just did not happen because the government and the Federal Reserve didn't want it to happen. Weren't going to let it happen. They were going to come in, going to take taxpayer dollars. Remember TARP? $800 billion. Where'd the number come from? They just wanted to pick a really large number. That's all. Just had to make it up. If they said $1 trillion back then, a decade ago, everybody would have been gasps all over. $1 trillion? No way. But $800 billion seemed feasible. And then when you have the scare tactics, scaring the hell out of Congress by having Ben Bernanke go in there and tell them all, if you don't do this, it's going to be worse than the Great Depression, and telling them all the scenarios, yada, yada, yada. Guess what? That's what needed to happen to some degree. It doesn't mean it was going to be that bad, but that's what needed to happen. The malinvestments needed to go. That's why I've stated here many times before, and very recently as well, that President Obama missed the opportunity of a lifetime, because he could have come in, cleaned the slate. He could have cleaned the slate, but he didn't. He propped up the system. He continued with those legacy decisions that George W. Bush and his administration made during the latter months and days of his presidency. President Obama was under no obligation to continue that policy. He could have changed it. He was elected on hope and change. And I did not vote for him. I do not support him on many issues. Some I do, but many I do not. But I attempt to give credit where credit is due, and he had the opportunity to fundamentally change the system for the better. Donald Trump was in a similar situation. He's blown that, just like his predecessor did. Donald Trump, I really thought he was going to rise to the occasion. I really thought he was going to be more of a uniter, not a divider. I really thought he was going to understand monetary policy, because he seemed to have somewhat of an understanding of it during the campaign in 2015, 2016. Calling the Federal Reserve out for causing these bubbles, calling all of the economic numbers that were being printed out of the Obama administration as fake and as part of a bubble. Now he's president. He wants the easy money from the Federal Reserve. He wants it to take it even further with negative interest rates. And all of the numbers that come out of his administration are, of course, perfect and the best ever. Which takes me to a couple points during his State of the Union address. He was basically making the claim that all countries around the world are envious of our stock market, as if that is the only thing that world leaders are paying attention to, that that's the only thing they're concerned about. They're not concerned about their border security. They're not concerned about having a proper military that is adequately supplied and trained. Not concerned about an educational system that lifts people up. Not concerned about regulations that can either crimp innovation and entrepreneurship or light a fuse under it. No, they're not concerned about all of those things. They're not concerned about a well-functioning health system. They're not concerned about any of those things. They just want to pay attention to what's going on in the stock market. That is the problem with today's society. It's one of the many. It is one of the many. We have turned everything into a financial asset in one form or another. Just take a decade ago, in the lead up to the great financial crisis, with the subprime crisis. We turned our homes into casino chips. They're supposed to be our homes. They're supposed to be where we raise our families. It's supposed to be where you celebrate birthdays, anniversaries, Christmas dinners, Thanksgiving dinners, backyard barbecues, all that good stuff. Nope, can't do it here in the old US of A. Got to turn it into a financial asset. That's what's important. How much money can you take out of it? How much money can we give to some sucker who thinks he's going to have a piece of the American dream, only to realize in a year or two, his payment's going to balloon, and he's not going to be able to make it. Well, we don't care. Why should we? Because we're making huge commissions. That's what's wrong. And it's not getting any better. And in fact, it's getting much, much worse. And when we have a president who talks about the stock market all the time, it's not good, folks. Most of this country doesn't own stocks. They don't own financial assets. They don't own bonds. They don't own real estate. They don't own commodities outright. Most Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, using their credit cards to make ends meet. How else could you logically deduce that a significant portion of this country is unfortunately clinging or believing in the idea that socialism is an adequate solution? If everything was great, people would not be running to the likes of Senators Warren and Bernie Sanders. Wouldn't even be close. But we have a significant population, a significant portion of our population in this country running towards socialism or the idea of it or some variation of it. If everything was fine, if the economic pie was growing for everybody, these people would be laughed out of all of the arenas and all of the stadiums and everything else, all of the gatherings that they are bringing together. They'd be laughed out of them. They wouldn't have the types of crowds that they get. They wouldn't have the type of support that they currently have. And again, the president makes the statement, talking about never being a socialist country or socialism will never take over our healthcare system. Too late! Too late. And if you don't believe me, buy my book, The Cynic's Guide to Investing. There's a complete chapter on the healthcare system in this country, where it was 50 years ago as to where it's been today and where it's likely headed in the future. I've stated it here many times before. I have articles up on the capitalnews.com website in regards to healthcare. That one, that it is not a right, because you do not have the right to somebody else's labor and their skill set. You don't have it. And how President Trump used to say, and I don't know if he's still thinking it or what, but he used to say that the Republican Party is going to be known as the party of healthcare. No, because it's all this is going to do, which it has been for quite a while, is a political football. The Republican Party is not going to remain in power for always and ever. Likewise, the Democratic Party is not going to remain in power for always and forever. So that means policies are going to shift. Why do you want something that is so personal, maybe one of the most personal things to you, especially when it comes to any type of policy that we have in this country, your health? Why do you want to entrust that to politicians, who the vast majority of people in this country do not trust? This makes no sense to me whatsoever. If somebody can explain it to me, I'd truly appreciate it. Why would you want to do that? Why would you want to give something that is so personal? Why would you want to turn that over to the administration of politicians? I just don't get it at all. Because you'd have to be beyond stupid to think that these people are going to solve it. You really? Because they're not even going to be there forever. So you might have somebody, well, yeah, there's somebody really smart there, but are they always going to be there? Are they going to pass the torch? And even if they are, is that the right thing to do? Is that the proper rule of government? You know, we got the whole impeachment thing going on. The Constitution's being tossed around rather loosely. Do you really understand what that's all about? Do you understand the essence of it? Yes, it says general welfare. Your health is very personal. That's not general. Your retirement, your personal finances, that's not general. That's very personal. You understand the difference? These are basic words. But we have it time and time again. Politician after politician, Democrat after Democrat, Republican after Republican, telling you, I guess, what you want to hear. You get the vote, and then look what happens. $24 trillion in debt, and we're supposed to be thankful for everything that we have here. A lot of the statistics that the president gave are true. Especially when it came to the economy. They're true. Unemployment is low. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. But what's the quality of those jobs? Is it a job? Do you count the job if somebody has 1.5 jobs, 2 jobs, 3 jobs? Is that a good thing? I don't think so. I don't think so. It was only 40, 50 years ago. Dad could go out and work 40 hours a week, pay for the house, pay for kids' tuition, pay for a car, go on a vacation, and had a pension. Had a pension. Now people are working 2, 3 jobs just to make ends meet. So for the president to get up there and say that our State of the Union has never been stronger, well, that's just simply not true. It's aspirational. It's optimistic. I hope we can get there, but not by lying, not by deceiving, and not by printing money to gloss over all of the problems that nobody has the spine or the backbone to stand up and to admit to. The issues that we talk about here every day. Every day. There's a lot of talk with, the 2020 campaign, what one candidate's going to do against the other. You got candidate Yang who's out there talking, oh, well, we're just going to give everybody $1,000. I'm going to give everybody $1,000. Now, of course, maybe some of that's going to be means tested. So if you're in the upper echelons of the income bracket, you're not going to get it. But most Americans are going to get $1,000. Why would you want to create a middleman? Why don't you just take the Kapital plan and get rid of the income tax? You'd give people a lot more than $1,000 back. A lot more. Why take it from them just to give it back to them? Just let them keep it. Because you know what happens in the interim when people don't have that money? They have to go out and borrow. They got to go to a payday lender. They got to take out another credit card. They got to do XYZ, which puts them further and further in the hole. Further and further behind. That's why people are ecstatic for their tax refunds. They budget themselves on their tax refunds. That's why there was such chaos last year, because people didn't realize how the tax cut affected their paycheck. They were still expecting to get a huge refund come the following April. Didn't happen because they got most of that money every week in their pay, which tells you how little people pay attention. It tells you how poor everybody in this country is when it comes to financial acumen, balancing a budget, spending within their means, living within their means. Congress is just a representation of us, we the people. And if this is the best we can do, shame on us. Shame on us, because this is continuing to kick the can further and further down the road. It puts more and more strain on younger generations, the millennials and generations yet to be, for policies that we have very little to do with. We were not here to enact them. We were not here long enough to continue to vote for them. Yet we're going to be the ones paying the bill. We're already the generation that is paying the bill. Look at student loan debt. It's gone up over $1 trillion in the past decade. Over $1 trillion in the past decade. We have auto loan debt, near or just surpassing $1 trillion. Credit card debt, near the same levels. That's not a strong and vibrant consumer. That's not a strong and vibrant economy. It's a debt-laced economy. And this audience knows what debt is and what that means. That is not growth. Growth comes from savings, which comes from earning, which comes from production. Production's fallen off. Manufacturing's declining. We just had some manufacturing numbers come out. They could be touted as good on the headline. But then when you sort of, again, look under the hood like you're supposed to do, where is a lot of that growth, quote-unquote growth, coming from? It's coming from Uncle Sam, for military orders. So the war machine is sustaining our economy. Is that the type of economy, the type of country you want? One that is sustained because of war? Or because of the manufacturing of weapons? Is that the best we can do? Because it's not in the private economy. That's not where all that money went. All that tax cut, mainly to corporations and to the upper echelons. Where'd all that money go? Where'd most of it go? Did it go to capital expenditures like it was supposed to? No, of course it didn't. We see that it didn't in GDP for the past several quarters. It's not going there. It's going to financial engineering. It's going to share buybacks, which keep these markets propped up in addition to the Federal Reserve, in addition to other central banks the world over. The coronavirus, the Chinese pumping in $100 billion the other night, and an additional billions today. Everything's supposed to be fine. The coronavirus is now supposed to be contained. China's stepping up efforts. So then why do you need the stimulus? Or is the coronavirus just an excuse? Just an excuse. Or is it both? Is it serious, but yeah, we're still going to use it as an excuse. We're still going to use it as a cover to justify ridiculous amounts of liquidity injections. Because God forbid there's any semblance of free market capitalism and price discovery. Can't do that. The president says it all the time. Not going to be a socialist country. Too late. There's no price discovery. There's no price discovery. It's all manipulated. It's all jacked up. It's all by decree. That's socialism. That's totalitarianism. It's not free market capitalism. It's definitely not American. And again, I've told this to you guys many times before. If I gave you a blank sheet of paper and I started writing numbers on it and I drew a line down the middle, on one side I'm going to put numbers, on the other I'm going to put other numbers. And I'm going to say, which ones are better? Which ones are better? 9 out of 10 statistics that I would give you, you would end up picking numbers that took place under the Obama administration. 9 out of 10 times. Now, you wouldn't believe that because Donald Trump Thunderthumbs makes believe that he is the greatest president ever and this is the greatest economy ever. Job creation per month average was better under Barack Obama's last 28 months, last 3 years, as opposed to Donald Trump's first months in office to this point. I've done presentations, capital economics presentations, showing you the continuation of the downward trend in unemployment. Nothing special happened under President Trump. It was a continuation of trend. There was no great deviation in the rate of change in unemployment. Donald Trump wants to tell you that there are more Americans working today than ever before. That's true. But guess what also is true, folks? There are more people in this country than ever before also. So it would logically make sense that there are more people working today than there were before. Well, guess what? If you went back and you looked at Obama and Bush and Clinton, they could have said the same exact thing at that time. Because the population of this country continues to increase. No duh. So what you have to look at, which the president never brings up, is the participation rate when it comes to employment. And why doesn't Thunderthumbs bring up that number? 1, he might not know it, or 2, he does, and it doesn't help his argument. Because the participation rate in this country has barely ticked up over the past decade. Barely. You would think if unemployment continued to plummet at that rate, the participation rate must really be going sky high, really taking off. That's not the case. It's stagnant. Little bit of an upward drift, nothing to write home about. Definitely not big enough for Thunderthumbs to talk about it, because if it was good enough, you know he most definitely would be touting it. But he isn't, because it's not a good number. Look beneath the hood. The car might look great. The car might look great. The unemployment number might look great. But lift up the hood, what's that engine looking like? It looks like a piece of crap. And when you look at the jobs that have been created, if you look at what they're actually paying, and when you're looking at how many people have to work 2 or 3 jobs, a lot of them part-time, and a lot of that falls on the back of a lot of the Affordable Health Care Act, Affordable Care Act, and Obamacare. And the type of part-time economy that we have, the gig economy that we have in this country. If everything was great, it wouldn't be here. Not to this degree. People wouldn't need to work 2 or 3 jobs just to make ends meet. Again, people would not be clinging to the ideas that are coming from Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren if that was true. Because it wouldn't make any sense to go with them. It doesn't make any sense now, but at least you can somewhat understand it. People are venting. People are upset. People are upset with a system that they don't quite understand, but they know inherently that something is wrong. And unfortunately, you have many people on the left that blame free market capitalism, and you have people on the right who don't understand what it is. They don't understand what it is either. Conservative Republicans, fiscal conservatives, where are you? $1 trillion deficits. Who cares? It's our guy. If it was Obama, string him up. Our guy, no problem. Trade wars. If it was Obama, string him up. He's a communist. He's a socialist. He's trying to take over. Donald Trump, no problem. See what I'm saying here? Bailouts. Obama, string him up. Donald Trump, let's bail out all these farmers, tens of billions of dollars. No problem. Bankruptcies of farmers. No problem. You got to be kidding me. You have to be kidding me. And then most of these Republicans, at least on your evangelical side of things, makes no sense to me whatsoever. How are his actions Christian-like? How can you justify what he's doing? Are you justifying poor behavior by pointing out poor behavior by the Democrats? Is that Christian-like? Does that sound like turning the other cheek? Because let me tell you something. If righteousness cannot overcome wickedness, we're in a lot of trouble. We're in a lot of trouble. Or is that what we have to do now? We have to fight fire with fire. I don't think so. I think we can do better than that. I think the president can do better than that. As much as I don't like this president anymore, I wish him well because he's got a lot of big job, a lot of important tasks in front of him. And he needs our help. He needs a lot of help. Democrats aren't giving it to him. Republicans, are basically in this impeachment, are giving him a free pass, which is ridiculous to me. And in all likelihood, the president will be acquitted tomorrow. I believe Susan Collins, senator from Maine, who has also always been flimsy, and she's got to play both sides of everything to look like she knows what she's doing, being impartial, being fair, which is a big joke. She's now come out and basically said she's going to acquit him because she thinks that the president learned his lesson. She thinks that the president won't do this again. Are you kidding me? Have you paid attention to the history of this man? Not just when he was in office, but since he's been a businessman for the past 40 years. Have you paid attention to his MO, how he operates? He is going to feel completely free. He is going to feel like he can do whatever he wants to do. He's already stated it. Article 2, I can do whatever I want. And he has a crackpot attorney in Alan Dershowitz coming up there and doing a huge disservice to this country by saying that an abuse of power is not an impeachable offense. You've completely taken off any type of limiting principle that exists within the Constitution to keep the president and the executive in check. It's completely gone because the Justice Department has their precedent. We're not going to indict a sitting president of the United States. And now if he's acquitted based off of the defense that an abuse of power is not an impeachable offense, well, now it's just free reign if the president so chooses. And it might not be him. Maybe Thunder Thumbs reins himself in. Maybe he's fine. Maybe he keeps himself in check. Still not good, but maybe he does. I doubt it, but maybe. What about the next guy? Is the next president going to be as nice? What are we going to do then? Because now there's precedent. Abuse of power. You can't do anything. Can't do anything. I'm allowed to do this. I'm allowed to call up another country. I'm allowed to call up anybody I want. I can call up my own people here in this country to investigate a political rival, to get dirt on them, to announce investigations on them, to make it look bad for them. You can't do anything to me because you didn't do anything to the previous guy who did it. See how dangerous this is? The president is going to feel extremely emboldened. Any politician can get up there and deliver a speech and sound charismatic and look charismatic and do a good job and hit those key words that really get you going. It's what they all do. And we're $24 trillion in debt. We're in endless war after endless war after endless war. One problem after the next. Inflation, a central bank that is out of control, and a president who is saying, go ahead and keep doing it. In fact, get even more out of control. And we're all paying for it. And if you think it makes a difference who's really in that White House, the way that these people operate, I don't know what to tell you. You know, I've woken up to a lot of facts. A lot of them have been easy to accept. A lot of them have not been. But this is the reality in which we live. And again, this goes to the fact that there is no leadership in this country. There's no leadership in much of the world. The only people, in my opinion, that are leaders are the people who are protesting in so many countries on this planet right now. Those are the only people. And it will happen here because it has to, unfortunately. It shouldn't. It should be quite simple. Freedom is a very simple and beautiful idea, and it shouldn't be that hard to defend it and to maintain it. But obviously we can't do that very easily in this country. It's too hard to understand, evidently. All it has to do is with tolerance. That's it. If you don't like what I'm doing, don't watch Don't listen. If I don't like what you're doing, I'm not going to watch. I'm not going to listen. Don't come into my house. I won't come into yours. It's very simple. Live your life. I'll live mine. Don't do damage to me. I won't do damage to you. That's all it is. And round we go. We don't all need to be friends. We just need to have that respect for each other, that basic tolerance of each other. You don't like the God I pray to? Then don't come to my church or temple, and I won't do the same for you. Very simple. Very, very simple. You want to write a book about something? Write a book about it. I don't have to read it. I don't have to listen to you read it out loud. What could be easier than this? We create our own problems. So we can solve them, and I hope we do. But the policies that we have been implementing, not even close. It's making them worse. There needs to be a day of reckoning. It needs to come sooner rather than later, because the further we kick it down the road, the bigger the problem is going to be. I mean, just look at a handful of stock charts. Look at Tesla, for example, now. It's exponential. And then go look at so many other companies and stock prices in other countries' stock indexes over the years when they have had this type of hyperbolic exponential growth. See what happens very shortly thereafter. You ready for that? You're going to be smart enough to get out? You're going to be smart enough to hedge your positions? I doubt it. Most of us aren't. None of us has a crystal ball. So you better be ready. Because to me, all this is a huge pump and dump scheme that we have been witnessing here for the past few years. That's all it's been. Has there been some stimulus measures that have propped this thing up, kicked the can down the road? Oh, absolutely. We talk about them all the time. Federal Reserve is printing $100 billion a day, $50 billion, $100 billion, $70 billion, whatever it takes to keep these markets up, whatever it takes. And most of the time, they succeed. You get a couple of days, yeah, maybe it dropped 0.5%, maybe, rarely. But recently, we saw a 1% decline, 2% decline on some of the indexes. That's rare. That's rare until it isn't. Until that day of reckoning comes. And it doesn't matter how much money they print. Doesn't matter how many bonds they buy. Doesn't matter how many tweets Thunder Thumb sends out there. It's going to be game over. And I'm not even so concerned with the financial cost. I'm concerned with the human cost. What this is going to do. What this is going to do to so many people and in so many communities around the world. People are going to lose their jobs. People are going to lose their homes. They're going to lose their businesses. They're going to lose their cars. They're going to have to drop out of school. They're going to have to make big decisions as to, do I fill this prescription or do I fill my refrigerator, as Amy Klobuchar said the other night in regards to Iowa, one of the speeches she was giving, which was a good line as far as I'm concerned, but that's already being experienced in this country. The greatest country in the world. The best economy ever. And families across this country have to make the decision. Do I fill my refrigerator or do I fill the prescription for my child? That's great. That's pathetic. That's reality. And that's why people are starting to cling to socialism. Because they think, well, what we have now isn't working, because what they think they have now is free market capitalism, and we're not even close. Not even close to it. Not even close. So that was some of the market performance. Those were some of the statements out of the State of the Union. Again, it's a speech. They want to applaud. You get your lines. It's 2020. It's a kickoff speech for the campaign. He hit a lot of notes that's going to rile up his base, maybe bring some independence over to his case. Long way to go. Extremely long way to go. The president has some strong polling numbers moving in his direction. The impeachment thing is obviously partisan. People are sick and tired of it. I understand it. I'm sick and tired of it. And I think it's right that they went after him, because what he did was wrong. What he did was wrong. But the country is sick and tired of being sick and tired and seeing all of these political games that are being played. I mean, even Nancy Pelosi, she ripped up the State of the Union speech, her copy of it, after the speech on camera. I mean, these people they're disgraceful. from the president down. I mean, that's right there, folks. You just saw it. President Trump, God forbid something happened, then you got Vice President Pence there. God forbid something happens to him, then you got Nancy Pelosi. This is how we're treating each other. Like 6-year-olds. Well, he did it, so can I. Justifying poor behavior with poor behavior doesn't work. Don't you have a mother who told you that? I would hope you would. Bad behavior doesn't justify bad behavior. Just because your friend did it doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. But that is the state of our union. Stay diversified, stay vigilant, and stay with the Capital News. I am Alex Koritis. Godspeed.